What if I told you that landscapes are harder for beginners because they focus on the wrong things? Before I learned what I will cover in this video, my paintings were messy, directionless, and even worse, just plain boring, which is the worst thing for a concept artist. Once I started using these techniques, my environments not only got a lot better, but now they have a real story to them. If you look at the comments on my Instagram, you see how this method actually makes people stop scrolling and engage with comments. I really hate showing this, but here's a painting I made before I made this change to my art. You have no idea how much internal cringe I'm going through to show this. And here is a painting I did recently where this one problem is fixed. Can you see it? We will cover focus and viewer engagement to make this video as helpful as possible, because they are the core building blocks every single landscape painting needs. If you are getting started with landscapes, my intent with this video is to simplify the process so that you can reach more impactful end results faster. First, let's Marie Kondo the living crap out of your landscapes. You often hear advice that references always help when learning new things, and that to some extent is true. So when we see something interesting, we take a picture with our phone and it looks like an absolute mess. I mean, look at this. This place is a beautiful and inspiring location to me, but you'd never be able to tell from this overly sharp iPhone picture. We have no problem differentiating between each tree, bush, and rock in nature. That separation that we naturally see is completely destroyed when we project it into a two-dimensional image. Your phone applies all kinds of digital sharpening and value flattening to squeeze out all of that character from that photo. What you see doesn't end up in that photo. So how do you actually create that separation in a scene? Now, I don't know if this is just a dumb, embarrassing thing that I'm admitting here, but just in case it's not just me, I'm going to say it anyway, because it might help you. When painting from a reference image or on location, younger me treated the landscape as an objective truth from which the painting should not deviate from. My art also showed that pretty clearly. It was trying to be accurate, but it was also just garbage. There's no other way to say it, it was just garbage. Nature doesn't always arrange itself in the most visually pleasant way, and there will always be more detail than is relevant to the story that you are telling in your painting. Let's reframe your entire job as an artist here. Your job is to highlight what you want to show us in the scene. And that is not all of the scene. You can do this by leaving out details, using silhouettes, grouping elements by value and color, using negative space as a composition element, and guiding the eye with leading lines. These are all tools that you can use. You can also hold the attention in your focal point by painting with rich, playful brushstrokes and using scale to guide the viewer's eye to your main point. That's a lot of techniques, but all of these are for one purpose only: focus. Let's use this painting to break down a common element that does all of the above in such a simple way, and it's an easy way to do it, that you probably don't even notice it when you look at it. Here we have a row of trees. All of these look quite similar. If I were near a forest like this, it would look way more interesting and chaotic. This looks honestly pretty boring by itself, but that is by design. The trick to making your paintings more interesting is giving just as much thought to making supporting elements not compete for that attention. We can put both of these two forest areas side by side and we see the same techniques used in both of these paintings because they both serve the same supporting role in each painting. So the contrast is low, the patterns are repeating, and the overall rhythm of brushstrokes is so monotonous that it doesn't catch the eye or steal attention from the main focal point. Every beginner, including me, when I started, likes to add full contrast to each element and cover them in bright saturated highlights. However, giving an element in your landscape just a supporting role takes a lot of restraint, because it's fun to play with those full saturation and high contrast colors. I will show how it's done in practice in elements like these, because this technique is repeated in both paintings. Nature has a lot of chaos in line rhythms, and this costs a lot of attention. The secret trick to organizing these elements is to keep the essence of chaos, but also to find repetition that is different but the same. Look at these two rows side by side, and pay attention to how your eye moves throughout these spaces. Notice how the lower row takes a lot longer for your eyes and brain to process, whereas the top row reads quickly and efficiently. See those hills in the distance. They're not dramatic cliffs or interesting landscape shapes. They are repeating that mantra that defines all supporting elements. Different but the same. In the same way, colors can be simplified or even flattened throughout your scene to make room for more exciting and important sections of your art. This shrub right next to the imaginary camera in the scene is basically just a flat card with just mid-tone highlights added on top. It's so naughty, and yet I think it works. All of these shrubs and plants are constructed the same way, making this massive tree the only thing I've given three-dimensional volume and texture with brushstrokes. My formula for making this tree and the tree house the focal point rests on making it the only big tree and the only man-made element in the whole scene. A great template that I use all the time in environment design is thinking about giving directions to someone else who hasn't been there. Do you have something remarkable that works as directions to identify the spot you are showing in your painting? For example, here one could say, it's a massive tree at the edge of a hill with a house on the side of it. You can't miss it. This simple technique is really important in concept art environment design as well, because this is the way that you would describe, for example, a game environment to somebody else, and this is the way that you create that sense of location and sense of place when people can talk about and identify in their mind specific locations in that game world. Now let's bring up that horrible old piece of art of mine and try to apply the same logic. Now, where is this? Well, there's a shallow pot of water with a lump of rock and foliage, and there's a spiky hill in the distance. My point is, if you need a whole damn paragraph to give directions, then your viewers will simply get lost in the woods and their eyes won't arrive to the location you want to show them. A lot of art tutorials discuss the rule of thirds, textures and color theory, but honestly, if you can't grasp this fundamental design aspect first, none of that matters because your viewers won't understand what you're saying them. Now, let's make it engaging. What are you saying? This next part might sound like I'm asking you a lot, but it's really the most important ingredient in this kind of art. All landscape masterpieces you know from art history have a message. Whether that's the scale of nature that makes humans feel small next to the force of nature, or turning the scenery into a metaphor for what's happening inside of us. Landscapes are not just pictures with trees in them, and for heaven's sake, don't call a landscape a background. That word has no place in landscape art unless you're working as an actual background painter for an animation studio. Your landscape can and should tell a whole story by itself. Now, it might seem intimidating that I'm bringing up like all these masterpieces from art history, but I don't think there's anything wrong with aiming higher, and you can do this second part too because you have important viewpoint that we all want to experience, and personally, I want your art to matter, and I want you to make meaningful art. At least meaningful art for yourself, because I want you to enjoy this. And to make your art engaging, if you want your viewers to remember your art, you must dig deep and find something to say, because they might not even remember how your painting looked later, but they will remember how your art made them feel. For the tree house, I wanted to build one of my safe places in nature, but I also wanted the architecture to reflect a different kind of coexistence, something where the forest doesn't need to be bulldozed to the ground for this home to exist. The person living here is basically me, because I built this place for myself. And I appreciate scenery, so that's why I added so many windows to the side of this house. The bedroom window I put on the upper floor is also a bit more ornate than what we see in modern buildings, because I think that we have lost the art of construction that considers these human elements, and everything is just like cheaper and more efficient. Rather than giving the building a second floor, I made it just this small narrow crawl space, because honestly you just need to be able to sleep there. It's just one more way that I am depicting the way of life in this location adjusts to the surrounding nature and not the other way around. When I'm painting this, I don't know if the viewer feels this way, but what I wanted to suggest with this piece is you're welcome here. You could live like this too, and you're welcome to visit and stay for as long as you like. For camping alone, this painting, I thought about loneliness, and loneliness not in a bad way, but there's something about seeing something beautiful by yourself that you wish that you could share it with others. And here it's a fleeting moment that will be gone forever in a few seconds, and that is that light that we see in the sky. Painting is often a very solitary practice, where you usually don't get to interact with others about the art you're making. I wanted to show how I'm alone in this process, but I know that when I share my painting, I can invite others to the same environment too. Kind of like we are alone when we are watching this, but we are together, connected by what we see. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's what I wanted to show. There's a practical side to this. Knowing the message that you want to say will help you make faster and better decisions about what to focus on. Both of these paintings have quite many details, and you can imagine that with every single detail, I can just process every detail through this filter. Does it tell the story? Does it guide the eye to this mood and the message that I want to show them? And if it doesn't, then it's easy to erase those elements. And when you have this many elements, the more elements you have in a painting, the more difficult it becomes. This is not just to make your message more clear, but this is also going to make the entire process, every single aspect of the process, endlessly more efficient, because you have a clear goal, and when you have tons of different elements, you are going to have a million elements where you need to decide, do I need to work on this at all? Does it need more detail? Does it need more highlights, saturation? Is the texture there? When you can always cross-reference it with your end goal, you know that do you need the element in the first place, and then cutting those elements out becomes very easy, and it's not like killing your own children in the painting. You know that feeling when you have a small element in a painting that you feel really proud of, but then you later realize that it's not supporting the end goal. Well, what if you cut out all of that time making that thing in the first place, because everything that you paint goes through the filter? Does it support the one element in my piece? Does it guide the eye to the focal point, and does it tell the story that I want to tell? While the message in my art doesn't reach everyone the same way, I hope some will feel it. I think most people sense when your art comes from the heart. At least I think that it feels just more true somehow. And that's what can sometimes make a painting more than just a picture. What way could you talk through your environments? What elements could work as language for telling that story? This channel is all about helping you reach your artistic goals, so please let me know in the comments below if there's a specific aspect you'd like me to cover on the technical side of painting, so you can realize those visions. One way of making your landscapes more personal is by learning how and exactly where to paint loose brushstrokes. That makes you paint in a more expressive and intentional way, and to learn that, I recommend watching this tutorial. If you want to see a real-time process of each of these paintings, all of the live streams are permanently available in the channel membership content library, so you can follow along the process from start to finish and see how exactly each element was made.